We knew something was off the moment we found the first reports. But when they started launching themselves out of the water, shooting straight into the air like torpedoes, we understood we were already dead. It started about a month ago. Our team at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography got pinged with a flagged batch of marine incident reports. Small vessels going missing near the Western Pacific. At first, it just seemed like standard maritime confusion. There were plenty of reasons boats went off radar. Storms, engine failure, human error. But these felt different. The incidents were clustered, scattered along a tight radius near the Mariana Trench, with no distress signals, no wreckage, nothing. People started whispering about underwater collisions, some freak seismic event. A few local captains swore they'd seen something huge just beneath the surface. Some called it a squid, others a giant jellyfish. But the way they moved, that didn't match any marine life we've ever cataloged. They didn't drift, they didn't pulse, they vanished. Gone in a flash, faster than anything should be able to move through water. Then came the disappearances. Research boats, survey crews, divers. Gone without so much as a flicker on the radio. One by one, like someone or something was picking them off. We pulled video logs, sonar files, anything we could get our hands on, but most of it was either too blurry, corrupted, or mysteriously incomplete. No one had clean footage. The best we had were panicked half-sentences, flickering heat signatures, and pressure spikes that didn't make sense. It felt deliberate. Whatever was down there wasn't just hiding, it was hunting, and doing a damn good job of it. They eventually gave the things a name, mucks. Massive underwater creatures. The media ate it up. News outlets splashed the term across every headline like it was some campy sci-fi feature. But for us, it was real. It was spreading. We managed to trace the earliest credible reports to a zone just beyond Challenger Deep. That's the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, in case you've forgotten your marine geography. From there, the sightings expanded, first to the nearby Micronesian island chains, then as far as the East China Sea. What started as isolated cases turned global within weeks, and that's when they sent us. The team was massive, over 100 scientists, tech specialists, sonar engineers, and submersible pilots. We were loaded up on a repurposed military vessel, retrofitted as a floating lab with every piece of cutting-edge gear they could squeeze onto the deck. Satellite sonar arrays, pressure-adaptive camera drones, reinforced diving rigs. You name it, we had it. Our mission was simple on paper. Find the mucks, document them, and figure out what the hell they were. Simple, right? I was one of the few marine biologists chosen for the core analysis team, mostly because of my specialization in abyssopelagic and hottle zone species. The kind of stuff that lives where light doesn't reach and pressure can snap steel. These were the things I'd spent my whole career studying. Life forms adapted to places humans were never meant to go. And my mentor, Mr. Carter, was the one who pulled me in. He'd been my professor back at Scripps and later hired me onto his trench survey group. We'd spent years together, cataloging bioluminescent crustaceans and microfauna along vent columns deeper than most people ever dream of diving. So when this came up, I didn't even get a choice. He sent me a ticket and a 2-word message. "You're coming." And I did. Dr. Lena Hirano and Ethan Marsh rounded out our research quartet. Lena was a neurologist from Japan who focused on neural structures in deep-sea bioluminescent species. She was sharp, quiet, always scribbling notes, eyes flicking constantly between the sonar readouts and pressure charts, like she was waiting for something to go wrong. Ethan was Canadian, field ecologist, sonar tech, absolutely obsessed with whale migration patterns. He joined for the same reason I did, because it was too strange to say no. Then there was Buck. Buck didn't exactly fit. He wasn't academic, he wasn't government, he just existed. A man in his late 30s who had made a fortune developing deep ocean submersibles and selling them to universities and tech startups. He never talked about how he got started, but his reputation preceded him. People said he'd done over 100 dives, some deeper than Navy-certified craft had ever reached. He ran the tech side of the expedition, equipment, subs, gear, all his, and he loved it. On the second evening at sea, I was standing on the deck, leaning against the rail. The sunset was surreal. The water looked painted, flat and gold, and too perfect. I was just soaking it in when Mr. Carter stepped beside me. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he said. I nodded. Too beautiful. It's like it knows we're here. He gave a tight smile. You always read too much into things. Maybe, but I've been on enough missions to know when the ocean's holding its breath. He didn't argue with that. Instead, he looked out toward the horizon and said, I know you didn't want to come, Daniela, but I need you here. And he meant it. I could hear it in his voice. I nodded. I know. I just hope we're not already too late. The next morning, our scanners lit up for the first time. Low-frequency pings, fast-moving, deep. I should have taken it more seriously. We all should have. But that's the problem with things that live in the dark. You never really see them until it's already too late. The ship had been running steady sonar sweeps since we left port, every 6 hours on rotation. Most of the early returns were unremarkable. Thermal plumes, sediment disturbances, some false positives triggered by schools of fish swimming in strange patterns. Nothing that couldn't be explained. Until Ethan flagged a reading that made us all stop. It came in low and quiet. A movement signature, almost 2,000 meters beneath us. It wasn't massive at first, but it was moving fast. Too fast. I was in the analysis lab when he stormed in with his tablet, eyes wide like he hadn't blinked in 20 minutes. Daniela, he said, I think you need to see this. He dropped the tablet on the table in front of me. The sonar return was grainy, but unmistakable. Something was moving directly beneath us, and it wasn't just passing by. Within a few seconds of the first contact, the readings multiplied. 3. Then 4. Possibly more, but 4 confirmed. Each one roughly 30 meters in length, though their shapes were inconsistent, shifting slightly with every sweep of the scanner like they weren't solid, or were somehow refracting the sonar. I didn't even have to ask. Ethan pointed to the screen again. They're circling us. Sure enough, the blips formed a perfect ring around the ship, one at each cardinal point, maintaining equal distance and speed. No change in depth, no signs of surfacing, just steady rotation, like we were the center of some massive, invisible carousel. What are they doing? I muttered. Ethan shook his head. No idea, but they're not getting closer. Not yet. We moved fast. Carter and Lena were already in the main control room by the time we arrived. Buck followed half a minute later, barefoot, still chewing what I assumed was a protein bar. He didn't seem rattled. If anything, he looked excited. Tell me you've got visuals, he said, looking toward the techs at the monitors. We're deploying a drone now, Carter answered. Front camera, high-intensity floodlights, depth sync to 2,000 meters. One of Buck's crew flicked a switch on the control board, and the drone's launch icon lit up. A small tremor shuddered through the deck as the device dropped from the underside of the ship, descending through the ocean with a humming sound only the hull's sensors could catch. We all gathered around the largest monitor. The drone's camera flickered a few times as it pushed through layers of plankton and silt. The deeper it went, the darker it got, until the floodlights kicked in. 2 piercing beams cut through the black water like searchlights in a fog. Nothing. Just particles drifting in slow, deliberate currents. Then something shifted. A flicker. Far out, barely within the edge of the floodlight's reach, something moved. Quick, like a curtain being pulled. We couldn't make it out. Just a shadow. Pan left, I said. One of the operators adjusted the drone's heading. The camera turned. Again, nothing. Just open water. For almost 3 hours, the creatures held their pattern. Never surfacing, never retreating, never approaching either. They kept circling, completely silent, completely synchronized, always just outside visual range. It felt less like hunting and more like studying. Lena stared at the sonar feed for the entire time. She didn't speak much, but when she finally did, her voice was so quiet I almost missed it. They're waiting for something. I turned to her. Like what? She didn't answer, just kept watching. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, they were gone. One moment they were there, 4 massive signals holding formation. The next, they split and vanished in 4 different directions, each one diving deeper, too fast to track. Our sonar scrambled to keep up, but could only follow 2 of them for a few seconds before the echoes faded completely. The sea went quiet again. The monitors returned to baseline. No trace, no debris, no motion. It was like they had never been there. Ethan let out a breath he'd been holding. Did we just get scanned? I looked down at the last sonar readout, then back at him. I think we got studied. Buck leaned over one of the consoles and muttered, "They know we're here." That's all I needed to see. He turned and walked out. I followed him out onto the deck, the cold air rushing past as I stepped through the doorway. The sea looked exactly the same as it had that morning, calm, endless, quietly breathing. But it wasn't the same. Not anymore. Because now we knew. We weren't alone down here. The dive began at dawn. The ship rocked gently under a silver sky, the ocean flat and quiet like it hadn't just swallowed 4 creatures the size of buses the day before. Buck was already out on deck when I came up, inspecting the sub himself, checking cables, nodding to the crane team, testing the hatch seals like he didn't trust anyone else to do it right. The vessel we were deploying was our largest submersible, a 2-person rig reinforced with layered titanium alloy, 360-degree external cameras, high-density floodlights, and a communications uplink that could punch through 5,000 meters of water. It wasn't just durable. It was a tank. Buck looked over his shoulder as I approached. "She's ready." I nodded. "Good." Mr. Carter joined us a moment later, glancing over the sub as the crane began lifting it slowly from the rig, the winches groaning under the weight. Below us, the water rippled as the machine hovered just above the surface. "This is it," Carter said. "Once we're down there, no second chances." Buck grinned. "Exactly how I like it." Ethan appeared behind us, tablet already in hand. "My radars are running. We're getting a clean signal. No movement for now, but based on what we've seen, this is the right place. We're almost exactly over the ledge of the trench." I looked at him. "You think we'll actually see one up close?" He shrugged. "Only one way to find out." The sub splashed down, disappearing beneath the surface in a column of white foam. We watched from the deck as it sank lower, then headed into the control room to monitor the feed. It was a tight space, barely big enough for 4 people to stand comfortably, but it was the ship's nerve center. 4 operators were already at their stations, screens blinking, headsets on, voices low. The main monitor displayed the sub's front-facing camera feed. A vast blue void slowly darkening as the vehicle descended. "Submersible descending," said one of the techs through the mic. "Current depth, 1,200 meters. Environmental pressure nominal. Light penetration negligible." We waited. At 2,000 meters, the view changed. The trench came into focus, a jagged wall of stone and sediment trailing off into blackness. The sub crept alongside it at a steady pace, its lights cutting a narrow path through the dark like headlights in a tunnel. The sonar picked up minor echoes, shifts in water density, maybe some curious fish, but nothing major. For 45 minutes, we watched as the sub maneuvered along the trench rim, camera panning from left to right, feeding back flawless high-resolution footage. Then I saw it. At the edge of the screen, just barely within the light field, something moved. A flicker. A blur. There and gone in less than a second. "Can we rotate the view left?" I asked quickly. Buck leaned in and gave the command through the comms. The sub shifted its heading. The camera adjusted, and there it was. A light. Glowing faintly in the distance, across the trench floor, too steady to be a thermal vent, too sharp to be a reflection. It pulsed with soft red veins like heat running through living tissue. Ethan squinted at his tablet. "We've got movement," he said. "Single large object. Strong signal. It's coming straight toward the sub." Buck grabbed the mic. "Sub-team, hold position. Stay sharp. Repeat, hold your position." Everyone in the room was silent. The glow grew larger, closer. And then it emerged. A shape filled the screen. Enormous and slow-moving. It was at least the length of a commercial aircraft, with a central dome-like body lined with faintly glowing red channels. Its outer skin was a deep, oily black that absorbed the sub's floodlights. No eyes, no mouth, no visible face. But it moved with purpose. Dozens of appendages flowed beneath it, long, flexible, undulating like fabric in a slow current. They weren't fins or tentacles in the normal sense. They were too long, too smooth. There was no flailing, no random twitching. Every limb drifted in sync like it was all one thought, one body. The creature didn't charge. It didn't flee. It just hovered in front of the sub, motionless, staring with senses we didn't understand. We were all holding our breath. Then it moved. Not slowly, not cautiously. In an instant, it shot backward into the dark, retreating without leaving so much as a pressure ripple. The sonar flashed once, then fell silent. Ethan leaned forward, eyes locked on his screen. "Nothing. It's gone. No new signals." I looked at Carter. He didn't say anything. just stared at the monitor, jaw clenched. Buck broke the silence. "Cross the trench," he said. "Aim for the light, we're going in." The sub advanced slowly, dipping deeper as it moved toward the far edge of the trench where the glow had come from. The camera panned downward, floodlights flickering against sheer rock walls and layers of sediment. Then something new appeared on the screen. A structure. Carter stepped forward, almost pressing his face to the glass. "What the hell is that?" Ethan's hands flew across the tablet. I can't see it on radar. It's not showing up. This isn't normal." But we saw it. A ship, massive, intact, lying perfectly still on the trench floor. It wasn't a wreck, it wasn't rusted or torn apart, it looked untouched. Smooth outer plating, no barnacles, no corrosion, no identifying marks, just dark, seamless metal stretching longer than a football field. Its design wasn't human. No thrusters, no propellers, no visible entry points or propulsion systems. The entire surface was lined with angular ridges, repeating grooves that shimmered slightly under the floodlights like they were grown, not manufactured. Carter grabbed the tablet from Ethan and stared. "This can't be right. Why isn't it on the sonar?" "Maybe it's jamming the signal," Ethan said. "Or cloaking itself somehow, I don't know." Buck stepped up to the console. "Sub-team, hold position, do not approach." The pilot's voice crackled back. "Copy." "Holding position." Then the hatch opened. A long seam on the ship's side split slowly, silently, revealing a rectangular opening that pulsed with red light. And then they came. 15 of them, maybe more, slid out of the ship in perfect formation. They moved too fast to track at first, then slowed just as they reached the sub. Their limbs drifted outward, curling in unison as they surrounded the vessel. Every motion was synchronized, like a single brain was controlling all of them at once. "Boss, what do we do?" Buck stared at the screen. "Do not move. Do not run, hold your ground." The creatures floated closer. Their limbs brushed gently against the sub's exterior, probing, circling. There were no collisions, no twitching, no random pulses, just perfect, mirrored movement from every direction. Then one struck. A single limb shot forward, faster than anything we'd seen, and touched the sub's outer shell. The screen flashed white. The sonar spiked, then silence. The feed went dead. The submarine was gone, just like that. The control room was dead silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the hum of the machines felt quieter, like the air itself had dropped a few degrees. The last image on the screen, the frozen frame of the submarine surrounded by limbs, stared back at us like a warning carved in real time. Then the feed fully collapsed. Static. No sonar, no pressure readings, nothing, just silence. Ethan dropped into the nearest chair, eyes locked on his tablet. The sub's pressure gauge spiked, and then flatlined. They didn't damage it, they crushed it. "It imploded," I asked. Ethan just nodded. "Instantly. There's no way those two men..." He didn't finish the sentence. Dr. Carter leaned heavily on the console, both hands gripping the edge like he was afraid the floor might fall out from under him. Across the room, one of the operators slowly reached forward and powered down the transmission panel, but nobody even looked his way. We all just stood there. 2 men. Gone. And the things that did it were already gone, retreating back toward that impossible ship like nothing had happened. Then Buck turned around. His face was stone. No expression, no fear, just cold calculation behind those eyes. "Meeting," he said. 5 minutes. He didn't wait for anyone to answer. He just walked out. I stayed behind, still watching the last sonar trace flicker and vanish. 2 bright dots erased like they'd never existed. They had names, families, and now... nothing. I followed Carter out slowly, my hands shaking without meaning to. By the time I made it to the main conference room, the rest of the team had already gathered. Techs, researchers, dive crew, everyone. Tension thickened the air like smoke. Buck stood at the head of the table. He didn't waste time. "We lost the sub," he said bluntly. "The creatures attacked. We all saw it. It wasn't a malfunction. It wasn't an accident. They destroyed it. Unprovoked." Murmurs spread through the room, low, uneasy voices threading into panic. One of the logistics guys stood up. "We need to go back. We're not equipped for this. If those things decide to come for the ship..." Another voice cut in. "We can't just leave. There's a whole structure down there. We have to know what it is." The arguing started fast. Words over words, people standing, fingers pointing. Someone brought up weapons. Someone else shouted about protocol. Then Buck raised both arms and slammed them down on the table. "Quiet. Everyone froze. He straightened up and spoke evenly. "We still have one more sub, and this one's getting a weapons rig." Eyes widened. A few people gasped. "We brought a missile platform for emergencies." "This qualifies," Buck continued. "We mount it. We send the sub down. If those things show up again, we shoot first." Dr. Lena spoke from the far end of the table. Her voice was soft but clear. "You can't just blow them up." Buck turned to her. "Why not?" "They haven't tried communicating. They didn't broadcast. They didn't even react when we approached. That one creature, it floated in front of the sub, like it was studying it." "They destroyed it," Buck snapped. "That's not diplomacy. That's an attack." Lena's eyes didn't waver. "It could have been a defensive response. You don't know what we triggered by getting that close. If they're intelligent, then we're the invaders." He narrowed his eyes. "They don't seem friendly, do they, Dr. Lena?" No one answered. After a long pause, Buck said flatly, "I'm contacting the government. I'm filing a report, and I'm telling them what happened. We're initiating countermeasure protocol." He walked out without another word. I didn't follow him. Instead, I turned to Carter, who was already back at one of the auxiliary workstations, fingers flying across the interface. "This isn't right," I said quietly. "We don't even know what they are. We don't know if we can hurt them, let alone kill them. If we provoke them, we could be starting a war we don't even understand." He nodded, still staring at the screen. "You're right, and Buck is going to mess this up. So what do we do?" He stopped typing and looked up. "We find out more. No guesses. No missiles. If we're going to stop this from getting worse, we need to understand what we're dealing with." I left him there and made my way to the comms room. The tech inside was already queuing up the last footage we had from the destroyed sub. He nodded silently and stepped aside as I sat down at the terminal. I watched everything again, frame by frame. The creature. The movements. Every turn was mirrored by the group. Every shift was timed. It wasn't instinctual, it was coordinated. Then Ethan entered. He looked like hell. Eyes bloodshot, skin pale. But he was clutching his tablet like it held the answer to everything. "I think I figured something out," he said. I didn't speak, just waited. He handed me the screen. "I changed the scanning bands," he explained. "Switched to composite overlay, layered infrared over topographic, and..." I broke through their jamming signal for a couple seconds. I stared at the image. It was the alien ship, clearer than we'd ever seen it. A massive oval structure covered in smooth ridges and curved armor plates that looked like they'd been grown rather than assembled. No seams, no vents, just a single, impossibly complex surface. Then Ethan tapped again. The overlay shifted to red. Thermal mapping. Thousands of heat signatures appeared inside the ship. Layered, clustered, packed. Every level, every corridor. Not 15, not 50. Thousands. We'd been thinking too small. Those creatures we saw earlier, that was just a scout team. Ethan leaned in close. "If Buck launches that missile, he might unleash all of them." I stood up fast. "We have to find him. Now." We found Buck on the main deck. He was standing near the crane rig, barking orders while two of his engineers finished securing the weapons platform to the remaining sub. A launch team was already prepping the missile system, calibrating the clamps, checking the wiring. Everything was moving too fast. "Buck," I shouted, holding out the tablet. "You need to see this." He barely glanced at it. I shoved it into his hands anyway. "That's what's inside the ship," I said. "Thousands of them. Not dozens, not hundreds. Thousands." Ethan came up beside me, breath ragged. "They're packed into the structure. If you attack it, you could release every single one." Buck stared at the tablet. 2 seconds, maybe 3. Then he handed it back and shook his head. "They're already attacking people," he said flatly. "They took out that sub like it was made of cardboard. We've confirmed civilian losses. That's enough. The government gave us green light to act if necessary." "You don't know what's necessary." I stepped forward. "You don't even know if they can be killed. You don't know what that ship is made of. You don't know anything." He scoffed. "Daniela, the missile we've got could punch through the sun if it wanted to." Then the ship jolted. Hard. Metal groaned. Gear clattered across the deck. Something had hit us. Panic broke out fast. Crew members scrambling to secure loose cargo, engineers shouting, hands gripping railings as the ship rocked again, less violently but with purpose. Not a wave. Not turbulence. A strike. The intercom buzzed to life, but it was just static. Ethan looked down at his tablet and paled. There are two of them, directly below us. Buck didn't wait. He bolted for the control room, and we chased after him, through the corridors, up the narrow stairwell, past the sealed gear bay. The room was already lit with flashing indicators by the time we reached it. "Shoot them!" Buck yelled. The weapons operator hesitated, looked back at him. Now, the key was turned. A heavy thud rattled the hull as the missile fired from the submerged launcher. The ship rocked again, but this time the force came from us. The monitors flickered. The sonar shifted. Ethan's voice was sharp. One of them's retreating. The second, it's slowing down. We rushed back out to the deck. Off the bow, the ocean had changed. It glowed. The deep blue had turned neon green, and floating just beneath the surface was one of the creatures. Limp, motionless, its limbs dangled like seaweed. The red bioluminescent veins that once pulsed across its body were flickering now, erratic and unstable. Buck shouted, "Get the crane, bring it up." No hesitation, his crew moved fast, lowering the primary grapple and locking it around the body. The cables strained under the weight, but after a few tense minutes, the creature was hoisted onto the deck. It hit the metal hard, wet and heavy, like someone had dropped a shipping container full of jelly. But up close, it didn't look like jelly. Not at all. Dr. Carter and Lena emerged from the stairwell just as the last cable was detached. "What happened?" Carter demanded. I told them, about the missile, about the kill, and about what Ethan and I had seen inside the ship. Carter's face went pale. Lena stepped closer to the creature. She didn't speak, she just looked at it. And something in her face changed. The skin wasn't soft or gelatinous. It wasn't like a squid or a jellyfish. It was tough. Muscle wrapped in something harder. And even though it had taken a direct hit, there wasn't a single rupture on the torso, no shrapnel wounds, no burns. The red glow was gone now, leaving behind a dull, sickly gray. The surface was faintly reflective, like scaled rubber, dry despite being soaked in seawater. And the barbs along the tentacles? Serrated, precise, too symmetrical to be natural. No eyes, no mouth, no sensory organs we could see. Along its lower half, a thin seam ran from the midsection to the end of its limbs, like it wasn't built for feeding or fighting, but for opening. Lena knelt beside it. She raised a scalpel, her hand steadied, but before she could make the first incision, Ethan shouted from behind us. "Signals emerging, multiplying, they're not stopping." We turned. He was holding his tablet high. The screen was red, dozens of new heat signatures, then hundreds, then more. I didn't even have time to speak before Buck turned on his heel and ran back toward the control room. We followed. Estimated contact in 2 minutes. Ethan yelled as we moved. Buck didn't ask for confirmation, didn't wait for protocol. He hit the fire key. The missile launched with a deep groan from the underdeck. The screen in the control room shifted to tracking cam. We watched as it cut through the water, aimed straight at the alien ship 2 kilometers ahead. "Pressure spike," Carter muttered, eyes locked on his tablet. Then Ethan said something that stopped me cold. "They're not coming for the ship, they're going up." "What?" "They're changing course, they're going up." Then the missile hit, a blinding flash. The water erupted into the air, an explosion so huge it looked like the ocean had been punched from beneath. Fire followed. A ring of flames tore through the surface as gas pockets ignited under the trench. I staggered out onto the deck. The sky above the impact zone was clouded with steam and debris. The blast column had reached hundreds of meters into the air, still climbing, thick and glowing from the inside. Carter stumbled beside me, tablet still in his hands. "No," he whispered. "No, this can't be right." That's when we heard it. A sound like nothing I'd ever felt, sharp, high-pitched, inside our skulls. We dropped to our knees, hands over ears, teeth clenched. It didn't stop. Then the ocean changed. One by one the creatures rose, not from the trench, from the sea itself. They floated into the air. Hundreds at first, then thousands. Each one hovered just above the surface, glowing in different colors, blue, red, green. Some had wings, some didn't, but they all flew. They didn't flap or glide. They just moved, smooth and soundless. Then they turned, every single one of them, in perfect synchronization. They faced us and began to move. Fast. Straight toward the ship.